Hey, welcome to Fun and Friends. My name is Avalon.
I'm Sabrina.
And welcome to our channel.
Welcome back. Well, we just finished chapters 2 and 3 and a lot happened. The prince and Selena made a negotiation deal about becoming potentially the assassin of Adrenaline. And they kind of went back and forth. It was I think there was a couple moments of flirting between the both of them. Because she was really sassy, and he never said stop being like sassy, like watch your mouth. The guard did, but not the prince. So I think he kind of liked that she was sassy, because he did say her attitude is like too sassy, but it may be good for this proposition, which is if you become an assassin for this kingdom, then you get your freedom. And they ended up negotiating it to 4 years, that she would have to work for the kingdom for 4 years. And then she gets her freedom. She keeps envisioning being in this forest with a bed under the stars and around pine needles. And very much where we wish we are right now, because that just sounds so relaxing. And then she comes to find that she will be in a competition with other assassins from other kingdoms, and that they're going to have to duel it out somehow with all of them, and whoever is the last one standing will be the assassin for Adrenaline Kingdom.
And she's kind of got this attitude, like...
Oh, this cockiness.
Where she's like, yeah,
I'm already the pick.
I'm already the best. I already got this in the bag, so we'll have to see how that goes.
And she's getting a bath for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
Like, tonight.
Because
they're going to go to Withhold in the morning.
Yeah, and she keeps saying, like, not introducing, but just, like, reiterating how scummy she is. Like, the fact that, like,
her nails are jagged. They keep saying her nails are jagged.
Her nails are jagged. When her face was shoved to the floor, it left, like, a mark on the floor.
Yeah.
And, like, he couldn't even see...
Her skin is stained, so you couldn't see the scars.
Yeah, he couldn't see the scars. So it just keeps, like, reiterating, like, how gross she is.
Even though she's a beauty.
Even though she's usually beauty. And she's like, I won't cry. I'm too strong for this. And I'm like...
I'd be crying.
Girl.
I'd be crying.
If, like, your skin was black and you could not see, like, anything part of your body, and you're leaving scummy, like, stains where you touched, like, I would be...
And she stinks. The prince said she stinks.
Yeah, he's like, you stink. Girl, take a shower. And she's like, I don't have access to a bath or perfume, so... Unlike you, so...
what do you expect?
So F off.
Yeah, basically. All right. Chapter 4. When Selena finally collapsed into the bed after a meeting with the throne room, she couldn't fall asleep, despite the exhaustion in every inch of her body. After being roughly bathed by brutish servants, the wounds on her back throbbed and her face felt like it had been scrubbed to the bone. Shifting to lie on her side to ease the pain in her dressed and bound back, she ran her hand down the mattress and blinked at the freeness of movement. Before she had gotten into the bath, Charles had removed her shackles. She felt everything, the reverberations of the key turning in the lock of her irons, and again as they loosened and fell to the floor. She could feel the ghost chains hovering above her skin. Looking up at the ceiling, she rotated her raw, burning joints and gave a sigh of contentment. But it was too strange to lie on the mattress, to have the silk caress her skin and a pillow to cradle her neck. She had forgotten what food other than soggy oats and hard bread tasted like, what a clean body and clothes could do to a person. Now it was utterly foreign. Though her dinner hadn't been that wonderful, not only was the roast chicken unimpressive, but after a few forkfuls, she had dashed into the bathroom to deposit the contents of her stomach. She wanted to eat, to put a hand on her swollen belly, to wish that she had never eaten a morsel and swear that she could never eat again. She'd eat well in rift hold, wouldn't she? And more importantly, her stomach would adjust. I love how they included that. Yeah.
Like, they were saying, like, with the people who were a part of, like, the Holocaust, like, they couldn't feed them, like, right away because they would get sick. And so they had
their stomachs don't hold food.
So they had to, like, feed them slowly. And, like, there were accounts of, like, the soldiers being, like, super upset because all they wanted to do was, like, feed these people who were, like, skin and bone and looked like they were about to die, but they couldn't because it would make them too sick. Mm-hmm. And so I'm glad that they included that in there. And
that's a very real thing for people, especially who have, like, anorexia disorder or who are in starvation mode. They cannot hold food down. They can only do certain foods and very small portions of it at a time, and that has to grow over months because their stomach can't expand like it would if it eats, and so it just has to throw up.
Yeah, so, like, I'm surprised and happy that she actually added that in there. And it also tells, like, how little she's been eating. Like, she probably has her ribs sticking out and stuff. Like,
probably.
Just saying.
Good description.
Good description. Love it. She'd wasted away to nothing. Beneath her nightgown, her ribs reached out from inside her, showing bone where flesh and meat should have been, and her boobies. Once well formed, they were now no larger than they'd been in the midst of puberty. A lump clogged in her throat, and she promptly swallowed it down. The softness of the mattress smothered her, and she shifted again, lying on her back, despite the pain it gave her. Her face hadn't been much better when she glimpsed it in the washroom mirror. It was haggard. Her cheekbones were sharp, her jaw pronounced, and her eyes slightly but ever so disturbingly sunken in. You know what? I'm wondering if she's taking inspiration from the Holocaust.
I wonder too, because this is very Holocaust detailed-like of what they went through.
They were in a war camp. They didn't last very long. They went through many people, and
shackled.
They were shackled, and they didn't get eat. And this sounds very Holocausty.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just trigger warning in case anybody gets triggered by this.
Yeah. She took steadying breaths, savoring the hope she'd eat a lot and exercise and could be healthy again, imagining outrageous feasts and regaining her former glory. She finally fell asleep. When Charlotte came to fetch her in the morning, she found her sleeping on the floor wrapped in a blanket. "Sardothian," he said. She made a mumbling noise, burying her face farther in the pillow. "Why are you sleeping on the ground?" She opened an eye. Of course, he didn't mention how different she looked now that she was clean. She didn't bother concealing herself with a blanket as she stood. The yards of fabric they had called a nightgown covered her enough. The bed was uncomfortable, she said simply, but quickly forgot the captain as she beheld the sunlight. Pure, fresh, warm sunlight. Sunlight that she could bask in and day out if she got her freedom. Sunlight to drown out the endless dark of the mind. It leaked in through the heavy drapes, smearing itself across the room in thick lines. Gingerly, Selena stretched out her hand. Her hand was pale, almost skeletal, but there was something about it, something beyond the bruises, cuts, and scars that seemed beautiful and new in the morning light. She ran to the window and nearly ripped off the curtains from their hangings as she opened them to the great mountains and the bleakness of Andover. The guards positioned beneath the window didn't glance up as she gaped at the bluish-gray sky, at the clouds slipping on their shoes and shuffling towards the horizon. "I will not be afraid." For the first time in a while, the words felt true. Her lips peeled into a smile. The captain raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. She was cheerful, jubilant, really, and her mood improved when the servants coiled her braid back into her head and dressed her in a surprisingly fine riding habit and concealed her miserable thin form. She loved clothes, loved the feeling of silk or of velvet or of satin, of suede and chiffon. She was fascinated by the grace of the seams and the intricate perfection of the embossed surface. And when she won this ridiculous competition, when she was free, she could buy all the clothes she wanted. Mm-hmm. She laughed when Charlotte irked about how Selena stood in front of the mirror for 5 minutes admiring herself, half dragged her out of the room. The budding sky made her want to dance and skip down the halls before she entered the mid-yard. However, she faltered as she beheld the mounds of bone-colored rock at the far end of the compound, and small figures going in and out of the many mouth-like holes cut into the mountain. Work had already begun for the day, work that could continue without her. and she left them all to their miserable fate. Her stomach clenching, Selena averted her eyes from the prisoners, keeping up with the captains as they headed to the caravan of horses near the towering wall. Yapping filled the air, and 3 black dogs sprinted from the center of the caravan to greet them.
Dogs. Dogs. I love dogs.
I love dogs. I miss Chewie.
I know. He'll be home soon.
I know. He's at the groomers. Nothing happened to Chewie. He's just
getting paupered.
He's getting pampered. He's getting his haircut and
nails did.
I thought it was gonna be like an hour, and it's like
2 to 3.
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so long.
Long time without the puppers.
I know. Okay. They were each sleek as arrows, undoubtedly from the Crown Prince kennels. She knelt on one knee, her bound wounds protesting as she cupped their heads and stroked their smooth hair. They licked her fingers in her face, their tails slashing the ground like whips.
Sound like my puppies at home. They have such long tails now.
I still need to meet Roger.
You do. You'll love him. Yeah. Roger's my Great Dane that we just got a few months ago.
He's so cute.
He's
or at least
precious.
from all the pictures.
He is.
He looks so cute.
It's beautiful.
And
but his tail is a whip.
Oh,
it's like this long, like a good 2 feet long, and it's just a whip.
Because it's like it's round. It isn't fluffy, right?
Yeah.
And so you're like, Chewie's like a fan, so like it's like you get a breeze from it when he does his tail. You're like, oh, I feel a breeze in the house. I wonder, oh, there's Chewie, there's his tail.
No. Mine, you need a duck and cover. It's a whip.
It was so funny because Gary's mom set up the Dickens Village, like the glass little village figurines, and then she had like this huge table of it. I want to say there was like 200 figurines. Like it was huge and elaborate. And it was super cute. And Chewie comes into the room and it's just like perfect height with his tail. And his tail starts going and we're like, Chewie, no! We had to like pull him out of the room. It was so, we were so worried it was going to break all of our figurines. But yeah.
No. Poor Chewbacca.
He's such a sweet boy. Mm-hmm. He didn't know what was going on. A pair of ebony boots. Oh, have you seen Winnie yet? So Gary's parents got a baby pug, and I got to name her, and her name is Winnie. So Winnie the pug.
Winnie the pug.
She's so cute. Everyone's getting puppies. I love it.
Yeah, I got
everywhere.
3.
I know, 3 at one time. It was like one day.
That was too much.
It was like one day, and then your brother went back and got the sibling, and then your dad was like, "But I kind of didn't want those kind of dogs. I kind of really wanted a Great Dane." So
he's been talking about for months to get, mind you.
So he's like, "Yeah, you guys can keep those other 2, but I'm still gonna go get my Great Dane." So then you got another dog. So now you have 3.
5.
Well, you had the 3 puppies and then the 2 older ones that you have. So now you have 5 dogs. That's a lot of dogs.
It's a lot of dogs.
Chewie, just my one, is kind of just a handful in himself. I'm good with that. Oh, thank you for fixing my hair.
You're welcome.
A pair of ebony boots stomped before her, and the dogs immediately calmed and sat. Selena lifted her gaze to find sapphire eyes of the Crown Prince of Aderlin studying her face. He smiled slightly. How unusual for them to notice you, he said, scratching one of the dogs behind the ears. Did you give them food? She shook her head as the captain stepped behind her, so close that his knees grazed the folds of her forest green velvet cape. No capes. It would take all of the 2 movements to disarm him. Are you fond of dogs? Asked the prince. She nodded. Why was it already so hot? Why is it already so hot? Oh, is it because the prince is there? Hi. I'm going to be blessed with the pleasure of hearing your voice, or have you resolved to be silent for the duration of our journey? I'm afraid your questions don't merit a verbal response. Dorian bowed low. Then I apologize, my lady. How terrible it must be to condescend to answer. Next time, I'll try and think of something much more stimulating to say. With that, he turned on his heel and strode away with the dogs trailing after him. She scowled as she stood. Her frown deepened when she discovered the captain of the guard smirking as they walked into the fray of the readying company. However, the unbearable urge to spatter something across the wall lessened when they brought her a piebald mare to ride. She mounted. The sky came closer, and it stretched forever above.
Her.
Oh, that says 24. I was like, man, I'm already on page 94. How did that happen?
24.
Doesn't it look like a 94 though?
It does. Scroll.
It was weird. Okay. Away and away to distant lands she'd never heard of. Selena gripped the saddle horn. She was truly leaving in Dover. All of the helpless months, those freezing nights, gone now. She breathed in deeply. She knew. She just knew that if she tried hard enough, she could fly from her saddle. That is, until she felt the iron clamp around her arms. It was Chartle, fastening her bandaged wrists into shackles.
Ugh.
A long chain led to the horse, where it disappeared beneath the saddlebags. He mounted his black stallion and she considered leaping from her horse and using the chain to hang him from the nearest tree. It was a rather large company, 20 altogether. Behind, 2 imperial flag bearing guards rode the prince and Duke Parrington. Then came a band of 6 royal guards, dull and bland as porridge, but still trained to protect him from her. She clanked her chains against the saddle and flicked her eyes to Chartle. He didn't react. The sun rose higher. After one last inspection of their supplies, they left. With most of the slaves working the mines, the only few toiling inside the ramshackle refining sheds, the giant yard had been almost deserted. The wall suddenly loomed, and the blood throbbed in her veins. The last time she'd been this close to the wall. Dot, dot, dot. The crack of the whip.
Aka's trying to.
Oh,
Still recording.
Still going. Still good.
Still going.
Still good. I love how you were trying to avoid something, and then you caused it to happen.
Well, I didn't realize how tucked under the blanket it was.
Well, it was fine.
No, it wasn't fine.
Well, until you pulled on it.
No, it wasn't fine.
You pulled on it. All right. Anyway. The last time she'd been close to the wall. Dot, dot, dot. The crack of the whip sounded, followed by a scream.
Every time I hear dot, 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 I think of Mamma Mia.
I haven't seen Mamma Mia.
When they're going through her mom's diary, she always put, like, every time she was with a man, she would say something really romantic, and then dot, 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 insinuating something else.
Something else happened. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you should watch it. You would like it.
I mean, I watched it when I was a kid, but I didn't understand all the nuances. So
you would enjoy it now.
So now I need to watch it, and yeah. Okay. Selena looked over her. The crack of the whip sounded, followed by a scream. Selena looked over her shoulder past the guards to the supply wagon to the nearest empty yard. None of the slaves would ever leave here, even when they died. Each week, they dug new mass graves behind the refinery sheds, and each week, those graves filled up. She became all too aware of the 3 long scars down her back. Even if she had won her freedom, even if she lived in peace in the countryside, those scars would always remind her of what she'd endured. And that even if she was free, others were not. Selena faced forward, pushing those thoughts from her mind as they entered the passage through the wall. The interior was thick, almost smoky and damp. The sounds of the horses echoed like rolling thunder. The iron gates opened, and she glimpsed the wicked name of the mine beneath the 2. Where did my little keeper tracker thingy went? Oh, there we go.
Keeper tracker.
Hey, it helps.
It does. It does.
Like
help.
my eyeballs like to flicker
Shift.
up and down, and it like really helps with like keeping
on point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. I used to be a little Target card, which is what I used for School Good and Evil, and then I lost it after School and Good and Evil, so now it's a Christmas card.
Boom.
I don't even know who it's from. That was from my aunt. And it was for all of us, even Chewie. How cute is that?
Even Chewbacca.
Even Chewie. All right, back to this. The iron gates opened, and she glimpsed the wicked name of the mine before it split into 2 and swung wide open. This is 100% Holocausty stuff. Like, I've been to Dachau in Germany, which was the first concentration camp, and they had like Dachau across the top, and then it had underneath it like "Work will set you free" in German, and then like when the gates open, like it splits it in half. This is like,
well, there's a lot of like kingdoms also that had 2 iron gates that would open.
But this one says like the name across the top, and they're talking about mass graves and how they never actually like left, like they just threw them in the graves.
Yeah.
I'm like, very, very concentration campy. Within a few heartbeats, the gates groaned and shut behind them. She was out. She shifted her hands in the shackles, watching the chain sway and clank behind her and the captain of the guard. It was attached to the saddle, which was cinched around his horse, which when they stopped, which could be subsequently unbridled just enough so that with a fierce tug from the end, the chain would rip the saddle off the beast. He'd tumble to the ground, and she sensed Captain Westfall's attention. He stared at her beneath lowered brows, his lip tightly pursed, and she shrugged as she dropped the chain. As the morning wore on, the sky became a crisp blue with hardly a cloud. Taking the forest road, they swiftly passed from a mountainous wasteland of Andover to the fairer country. By mid-morning, they were within Oakwood Forest, the wood that surrounded Andover, and served as the continental divide between the civilized countries of the east and the uncharted lands of the west. Legends were still told of the strange and deadly people who dwelt here, and the cruel, bloodthirsty descendants of the fallen witch kingdom. Selena had once met a young woman from this cursed land, and though she turned out to be both cruel and bloodthirsty, she was still human, and had still bled like one. Ha! She killed her. Yeah. After hours of silence, Selena turned to Chartle. Rumor has it that once the king is finished with the war against Wendelin, he'll begin colonizing the West. She said it as casually, but hoped he'd confirm or deny. The most she knew of the king's current position and maneuverings, the better. The captain surveyed her up and down, frowned, and then looked away. I agree, she said, sighing loudly. The fate of those empty, wide plains and those miserable mountain regions seems dull to me as well. His jaw tightened as he clamped at his teeth. Do you intend to ignore me for forever? Captain Westfall's brows rose. I didn't know I was ignoring you. She pursed her lips, checking her irritation. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction. How old are you? 22. So young. She batted her eyelashes, watching him for some kind of response. So it only took you a few years to climb the ranks? He nodded. How old are you? 18. She said nothing. I know, she continued. It is impressive that I accomplished so much at such an early age. Crime isn't an accomplishment, Sardonian. Yes, but becoming the world's most famous assassin is. He didn't respond. You might ask me how I did it. Did what? He said tightly. Become so talented and so famous so quickly. I don't want to hear about it. Those weren't the words that she wanted to hear. You're not very kind, she said through her teeth. If she was going to get under his skin, she would have to push a lot harder. You're a criminal. I'm captain of the Royal Guard. I'm not obligated to bestow my kindness or conversation upon you. Be grateful we didn't keep you locked up in the wagon. Yes, well, I'd wager that you're rather unpleasant to talk to, even when you're bestowing kindness upon others. When he failed to respond to that again, Selena couldn't help but feel a bit foolish. A few minutes passed. Are you and the Crown Prince close friends? My personal life is none of your concern. She clicked her tongue. Well, how well-born are you? Well enough. His chin lifted almost imperceptibly higher. Duke? No. Lord? He didn't reply. She smiled slowly. Lord Chartle Westfall. She fanned herself with a hand. How the court ladies must fawn over you. Don't call me that. I'm not given the title of Lord, he said quietly. You have an older brother? No. Then why don't you bear the title? Again, no response. She knew she should stop crying, but she couldn't help it. A scandal! A deprived birthright? And what sort of messy intrigue are you involved in? His lips squeezed together so tightly they turned white. She leaned towards him. Did you find that? Shall I gag you, or are you capable of being silent without my assistance? He stared ahead at the Crown Prince, his face blank again. She tried not to laugh when he grimaced as she began speaking again. Are you married? No. She picked her nails. I'm not married either. His nostrils flared. How old were you when you became captain of the guard? He gripped the reins of the horse. 20. The party halted in a clearing and the soldiers dismounted. She faced Chartle, who swung his leg over his horse. Why have we stopped? Chartle unhooked the chain from the saddle and gave a firm yank, motioning for her to dismount. Lunch, he said.
Dang.
So I don't feel like a whole lot happened in that chapter. I mean, besides the fact that she's leaving.
Mm-hmm.
But we did get a little bit into her, like, personal thoughts about, like, the fact that, like, even though she'll gain her freedom, she'll still, like, feel bad for the people who are still there, which gives her, I think, some emotional depth as a character. Not just like, oh, yeah, I got my freedom, bye. But she actually, like...
feels sorry for the other people.
Feels sorry for the other people, and she does, like, have a heart.
Yes.
It's not, like, just, like, this heartless assassin who just doesn't care about people and just kills everybody.
I think that the author wants to give us a look to assassin lifestyle, that they're not just killing. Like, that's not the only thing that they enjoy doing is killing, that they do actually have emotions.
Yeah.
That are humanistic, because I think when you think of an assassin, you think of someone who lost all human ability to be a human, which is our emotions.
I think we're getting, like I said, some more emotional depth, because on the outside, she just likes messing with people, and she's very like, I don't know, just very hard on the outside. Cold towards people, and very sassy, as we're like...
I think it's a front, though. So I think it
is a front, because she's talking about how, like, she feels bad that there's the people who are left behind, and that, like, the 3 marks on her back is always going to remind her of the trauma that she went through, and how there's going to continue to be people who are going through the same trauma that she had to go and bear, and that she feels bad.
And that they're all not going to make it, like she did.
Yeah. And
so kind of survivor's remorse or survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
She has a little bit.
So, I mean, I think most of... that fly is bothering me. I just feel like this chapter was mostly to give more depth to Selena's character.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think with all of the stuff that's going to be coming up, especially with the competition and stuff like that, we're gonna see her do some things and potentially have her maybe
lose sight of her character.
Yeah, or maybe her mentality of
will shift.
Yeah, will shift.
Mm-hmm.
Or she's gonna feel like remorse about like having to kill or do things in those games
in order to get her freedom.
She might even have a little bit of PTSD when she gets into it, because I mean she's already having some issues like dealing with
sleep on the bed.
Yeah, even sleeping on the bed. She doesn't want to sleep on the bed. It
doesn't feel right to her.
Yeah, she wants to go and sleep on the floor because that's what it was like in the mines and it feels more comfortable. And the captain was like, "You need to be sleeping on the bed." And she's like,
No, not really.
Yeah. So I think like as it goes on, I think most of this chapter was just to give some more depth to her character.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see what the
transition
is.
chapter.
It was a very good transition chapter.
Not too boring.
Yeah. And like I said, we got to see a little bit more like in depth into her rather than like
as a human, as a character.
Instead of just like jumping from like one area to another. Okay, we're done in Dover. Like now we're
competing.
Now we're in Westville. Like here we go. Or wherever they're going.
Agreed.
I can't remember the names. All the names are all complicated.
Yeah, they are actually kind of complicated.
I'm like, what are you doing? Why can't you just give me some easy names?
Well, if you guys can like figure out how to actually pronounce those names, like if you have the book or if you look at Spark Notes, whatever, let us know in the comments below how you think it's pronounced, and we'll give it a try next time.
We are trying our best.
Struggling
a little bit. That's why I have to pause sometimes. I'm like, oh my gosh,
that
has 3 vowels in a row. I've never seen a word with 3 vowels in a row. What am I going to say?
Exactly.
So, yeah, take a look. Mm-hmm. See if you guys think you know how to pronounce
it better. All right, well, leave comments down below. Leave questions. What do you predict is going to happen when she actually arrives to that next kingdom? How do you think she's going to be looked at and treated?
Who do you think her romance is going to be with? Because we know there's going to be romance in here.
Oh, yeah.
It's a Sarah J. Maas book. She always has romance.
There's romance. I think she might end up getting involved in like a triangle thing.
See, that's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if it's the prince, but I'm also like with this like Chartle character because she's like messing with him so much, and she's saying how young he is.
And they're all young.
And how like she just keeps messing with him. I'm wondering if
he'll end up falling for her.
Yeah,
and protecting her.
Yeah. So I don't know. I want to say him or the prince.
I would agree with you on that so far.
So far. I mean, we haven't gotten very far. We're only on chapter 4. But so far, that's where I think it's headed.
Agreed. Well, let us know what you guys think down below. And then we'll check in with you guys the next time we do our chapter read.
All right. See you guys. Bye.
Bye.